Okay, so good to see so many on here. I was just having a look down through who's on here. I see quite a few friends there, all right. So let me just give a quick background to myself in case people are just maybe wondering, who's this guy with the weird accent is. And let me see, where do I move on here now? Oh, yeah. So basically, I was a greenkeeper for many years, since the 1980s. And I was superintendent here at the Royal Curragh Golf Club in Ireland, which is Ireland's oldest course, in fact. I was there until 2019 when I sort of retired. Now, during the time there, I actually went back and part-time while I was still working. I did a degree in turfgrass, but I ended up doing a PhD in turfgrass pathology. And basically since 2010 up to the present time, I've been carrying out a lot of independent research, some of it for myself for the PhD, but also I would collaborate with various companies who would have possibly experimental compounds or products they wanted testing. Or we put together different programs, and mostly we'd be looking at things like disease control, enhancing turf quality. Done quite a bit of work with surfactants over the last few years. A few studies looking at trying to control worm casting, which are still ongoing and no great success there at the moment. But today, I want to show a study I did last year in collaboration with Aquaritin and Hill. And basically, it was looking at their Aquaritin 19 product. And what we wanted to do was we looked at, it was a field trial which was carried out here in Ireland, in Dublin, at a private members club. And it was on a Fescue Poa sward. It was on a links course, a natural sand root zone, fairway type maintenance on it, maintained around 8 mil, various aeration processes carried out. What we did was we wanted to assess how applications of low rates of Aquaritin 19 on its own, but also in combination with reduced rates of a PGR and a surfactant. That was one of the two treatments. And we wanted to compare that with a standard input of urea. Now, urea is something I've been using for years as a superintendent on fairways. It's a standard input for nitrogen inputs. So we wanted to compare how the Aquaritin compared to this in areas of growth and quality and that. And here's the treatments that we were looking at. So I haven't got a highlighter. I'm not sure whether you can see the cursor or not. But basically, treatment number one there on top was the Aquaritin 19 on its own. And it went out at 6 ounces per acre. Now, I'm not really keen on these American or imperial measurements, but look, we have to do it because a lot of the attendees today are using them. It was 6 ounces per acre, which worked out at a 0.42 liters per hectare. So that was the Aquaritin on its own. And then direct comparison with urea, the 4600, and this was 18 pounds per acre, which worked out at 20 kgs per hectare. So they're the two main sort of contenders that we're putting up against each other. Now down to number 3, and we had again the Aquaritin 19 at the 6 ounce per acre rate, but also, and I have these in red because it was PGR, which is Primo Max, and a surfactant. And they went out at 75% of the actual full label rate, which we went with the urea here on number 4. So number 4 was the urea and the PGR and surfactant at full rate. And number 3 was the Aquaritin with 75% rate of that. And then, of course, we had the untreated controls. So they were the treatments. And they went out every 28 days from the start of July up through September last year. And there was 4 replications for each of these treatments, which meant I was going to click control there, but it's actually I need my arrow here, which meant the trial plots were laid out like this as in a randomized control area. So, you know, the treatments were spread out over the area so that the environmental factors were well spread out as well. So randomized treatments, 4 replications for each of those treatments. And then what we wanted to do was we assessed various things. So first thing we looked at was the effect on volumetric water content, which is the soil moisture levels. And we used the POGO for doing that. And then secondly, we assessed turf quality, which we assessed visually on a scale of 1 to 10. So we assessed them, gave them a rating. And these were carried out before the treatment started and then during the trial period, 5 times right until the end of the trial. And sort of to back up the turf quality, we use what's called normalized difference vegetative index ratings, NDVI, which if you're not familiar with is a really good way of assessing turfgrass health. Basically, it uses a handheld meter which sends out various wavelengths of light. And the healthier, some of the light is absorbed by the plant for chlorophyll production and growth, and some of it is reflected back. And basically the meter will measure that, and it'll give you a reading between 0 and 1. And the nearer to 1 you get, the healthier the grass. So if your turf grass is around 0.7, you're doing okay. So that sort of backs up the visual assessment of turf quality. And of course, a very important one, of course, was growth. We wanted to see how these nutritional inputs, which we were comparing, affected growth. And we did this by having to collect the cuttings from each plot. We used the potassium mower and we gathered the cuttings and then we dried them and weighed them. Bit of a pain, but you know, it has to be done. It has to be assessed correctly. So you collect the cuttings, you dry them so that the moisture from day to day is not affecting it. You weigh them, and we did that through the period, and the weights were added up as a cumulative result by the end of the trial. And finally, we looked at nutrient levels, and we looked at soil nutrient levels before and after the treatments, and we also took samples of the tissues and I had them analyzed, looking at nutrient levels there also for the foliar inputs. So there were the assessments. So the treatments went out, randomized plots, went out over from July to September, and then the assessments were carried out. And what we found was, well, actually, this is an important thing I've been talking about for a while now lately, that no matter what research or trials you're doing, it's absolutely vital that the data you collect is analyzed correctly using a statistical program so that the results you're getting, you know, are due to the treatments or the methods or the practices you're carrying out, not due to chance. So it's important that data analysis is carried out. So we did that. And here's the results that we're getting. So the first one I want to look at is the volumetric water content. And there's the mean values over the trial period. And nothing exciting there, as you would expect. As you can see, I'm not sure whether this cursor is showing or not, but the third one from the left and the fourth from the left, these are the treatments, the Aquaritin 19 and the Urea, which were containing the surfactant. And as you can see, the surfactant was allowing them to hold on to more moisture. And this was a links course, so very free draining. And the important point here I'm going to point out is the fact that these two were the same. The volumetric levels, there was no difference between them. So bear in mind that this was using a 75% rate compared to the full rate with the urea. So volumetric water without the surfactants were, again, with the Aquaritin 19 and the urea, they were the same as the control also. So the mean values were interesting enough, but nothing exciting really, except that the main point from this would be that the 3/4 or the 75% rate of surfactant was working as well as the full percent with the urea. Let me see now. Where's me? Oh, here we go. So I want to move on to some of the more sort of vital ones that we're thinking about when you look at nutrition, is how it affects turf grass quality and, of course, growth. So this is the mean values of the 5 assessments of turf quality over that period. And again, if you look, you can see the nutritional inputs, all 4 were pretty much the same. Slightly better, the Aquaritin 19 was compared to the urea and the PGR surfactant one. But between the Aquaritin 19 and the urea, statistically no difference. So that looks okay, because it's like I remember doing a research trial for a European company a few years ago who had a granular input, a granular product, and they wanted it tested against the 3 leading brands in the UK, and similar to this, and they were very happy that their product worked the same as the leading brands. So what you're seeing here is that the Aquaritin 19 overall works as well as the urea. But what I like to do, looking at these things, is break it down and look at over the full period. And this is how the turf quality from July right through to September. And as you can see, all the nutritional inputs were better than the control. The control is the dotted line, the quality there. As you can see, they started out on the left there in July, pretty much the same. So I'm just going to narrow this down a little bit and compare the 2 main contenders here, the Aquaritin 19 and the urea. So starting off here on the left in July, the quality was pretty much the same. And after the first applications went out, we noted better quality with the urea. And I started thinking, oh, this is going to be disappointing for some people. But then, and as the second treatment and the further treatments kicked in, the quality gradually came up with the Aquaritin. So it was a more sustained level of quality. It came up and it remained better right through the full period. Now, statistically, no different, but not only was it as good as, but the trend was for slightly better quality. And if you compare them to the control down here, the dotted line for the same period, as you can see, they all started off the same, but both the urea did its job, improved the quality, and the Aquaritin came up and caught up and remained better then for the rest of the period. Now, on a similar thing, looking at the Aquaritin 19 with the PGR and surfactant, and the urea and the PGR and surfactant, again, was the same thing really. The starting off, the quick kick from the urea improved the quality, but again, by the second and following on from the third applications, the quality remained the same or slightly better with the Aquaritin 19. A bit of a kick here in September. And I think it might be maybe some type of rebound from the PGR. I'm not really sure. But eventually the urea caught up with the Aquaritin here. But by the end of the trial, in September, it come back again. But again, a good result, I think. So, as you can see, that's just the overall quality there. All the treatments were better than the control. Statistically, as you can see from the letters, no difference between the treatments, although the trend was for a better one from the Aquaritin, which is a good result for Aquaritin, I think. Now, sticking with quality and health, I want to show the NDVI, which is the measure of turfgrass health, basically. And there's the mean values. No difference between all 4 treatments. They're all better than the control over the full period. But again, if you break it down into the components, that's the Aquaritin and the urea on their own, much the same as the health, as the quality. The health started off the same, and NDVI readings much the same, and eventually they edged up and remained constantly slightly higher right through to the end, the Aquaritin 19. With the Aquaritin and the Urea with the PGR and surfactants, much the same program. Again, this bit of a kick here in health at the end during September. I'm not really sure what it was, but some sort of a rebound effect, I think. But overall, the quality and the health started off the same, and eventually the Aquaritin came up and was slightly better, certainly as good as, but slightly better than the Urea by the end, or from the treatment number 2 onwards. Now, I suppose the main thing that you wanted to look at, actually, before I go any further, I want to mention there's a few polls that are available to you here on the on the right-hand side. And if you click on that, we're going to share polls that you can vote on. And we'll be asking things like, what sort of, do you use granulars, or do you use foliars, or do you use a combination of both? You can vote on them. And there's a few other ones there which we're going to kick into, and hopefully you'll vote on them. We're asking what sort of does your current, how often can you go out spraying fairways? I know when I was a superintendent, it was a tricky enough job to get out every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Now you hear people, certainly in the States, who are going spraying every week, but obviously it depends on not only your budget, but your staffing level. So how often is it viable for you guys to get out spraying? Is it every month, every 2 weeks, every week? So just to get an idea of what's going on there. And we've a couple of other ones as well. What sort of your budget? What percentage of your budget actually goes towards fairway maintenance? Really, get an idea there, because when I started off back in the 80s, my budget for nutritional inputs and fairways was zero. Mainly because at the time the sheep were grazing the fairways on the golf course where I was, so they were actually inputting their organic matter themselves. But we're just asking what sort of a percentage you guys would have there. So there's a few polls there. I think there's 4 of them all in total, which we're going to put up. And feel free to vote on them, and just gives an idea of what's going on for future reference, really. So, and any questions, of course, keep them coming in as well, and we'll try and get through them. If I don't know the answers to them, I'll just tell you that, but we do our best. So I suppose the main aim of this trial was to see how these various inputs affected growth. And as I said, we did that by collecting the clippings and weighing them. And at the end of the trial, the cumulative dry weights were here. And pretty much as you would expect, the Aquaritin 19 input and the Urea on its own are on the left as you look at them. And they were much better than the control. And the two in the middle, you could say, the PGR did its work there and really reduced growth rates. But we're going to go and have a look at through the trial period, how it affected them. So just compare the two main contenders here again. So this is the shoot weight from July right through to September. And as you can see here on the left, starting off, after the first application, your Aquaritin and the control were pretty much the same. There's a big kick first from the Urea after the first application, as you can see on the left. And eventually, by the second application came in, the Aquaritin caught up with it. And we got this more sustained level of growth then, right through to the end of the trial. Statistically, no difference. Now, you have to say, well, again, the trend was for not only as good a growth, but slightly better growth from the Aquaritin by application 2. If you look at the control level of growth, it pretty stayed much the constant right through, really, which is maybe no bad thing. If you look at then the treatments that had the growth regulators in them, again, that was doing its job straight away. Compared to control, the growth was reduced. The interestingly enough, bear in mind the rate of the growth regulator with the Aquaritin 19 was 75% of the rate of the urea. So even though statistically they were the same, there was a slightly better reduction in growth with the Aquaritin in the mix as well, right through until the very end where this sort of rebound came in. But right through the full July, August and start of September period, the regulation was very good with both of them, but even better for some reason with the Aquaritin 19. We looked at the soil samples. As I say, we sent them off prior to the ones we got prior to the start of the trial and after the end of it. No great differences really. There's a slight reduction in levels as you would expect. This was mostly a foliar feed we were putting out, so there was some uptake. There would be some leaching of nutrients from the soil as well. But the really interesting one, in my opinion, was from the foliar tissue samples we took and measured, which is here. So this is from the leaf tissue analysis pre-trial and post-trial. And this is a better visual coming up here to show what was going on really. So before the trial started, we took the samples. I'm only showing the NP and K here for clarity. I don't want to go into all the minor nutrients, but NP and K here before the trial started. And as you can see, they're pretty much the same. There's the Aquaritin 19, the urea, and the control. As you would expect, no great differences there. Now, at the end of the trial, when we took the samples and had them analyzed, this is what we found. So an increase in N in all of them, in the two, the urea and the Aquaritin, but a much bigger increase and better accumulation of nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus. Well, NP, three of them. Bigger increase in the Aquaritin 19 tissues. So while there's an increase from the urea of nitrogen, certainly, but not as great as the Aquaritin there. So that was an interesting result there, I thought, when we looked at this, comparing the uptake from the start to the end of the trial. Better uptake overall there. Similarly, with the treatments that we're getting, the PGR and surfactants, start off as you'd expect the same. And at the end, again, a better uptake via the, in combination with the Aquaritin 19 in nitrogen, in the three of them actually. So that was an interesting result there, I have to say. So the take-home points from that particular study, which we did, was the volumetric water content was greater, as you would expect, in the surfactant-treated plots. And of course, this was a very dry root zone. But the main point, I suppose, was the surfactant that was applied at 75% rate with the Aquaritin 19 compared to the urea. And they performed just as well. The quality and health, not significantly different over the full period. The mean values have been much the same. But by the second application of Aquaritin, it was enhanced compared to the urea on its own. Wasn't significantly different, but it was as good and slightly better. Again, the growth over the full period, statistically no difference, but there was a trend again for better growth with the Aquaritin treatments. It was consistently slower to start off, but consistently better over the full period. The PGR, we got very good reductions with both treatments. But again, the important thing is the 75% rate compared to the full rate. So that's the take-home point from that one. Likewise with the soil analysis. Not much differences really, but the key one I thought was the leaf tissue analysis, shows an increase in leaf tissue levels of NP and K in all the samples except the controls, but there was a greater assimilation of NP and K in the Aquaritin 19 samples compared to the others. So the key, the summary, I suppose, would be hold on, that the Aquaritin, when it was applied sequentially at label rates, we had greater turfgrass leaf growth and enhanced quality when compared to standard applications of urea. And again, important to point out from a statistical point of view, there were no differences, but the trend was for better quality and growth compared to the urea. And that was supported by the tissue analysis, I thought, which showed the Aquaritin gave better uptake and accumulation of nutrients. And when applied alone in combination with surfactant, 75% of the label rate compared to the full rate with the urea, soil moisture levels were enhanced in a similar manner to the full rate, which was very good. Likewise with the PGR, the growth regulator, again, the reduced rate provided the same growth depression as the urea when applied at the full rate. And just a few photos sort of to finish up here now on this for you to have a look at. And that was the trial area. You can see the controls there. I'm not sure whether you can see my cursor or not, but you can see the difference in color on both those photos there. They're labeled. And let me see now. There's some more photos as well. Good afternoon from Tulsa, I see. Okay. And another photo selection here. No, sorry, no more here. There's a few more photos. So I think now that's basically the end of that particular presentation. Hopefully now we'll have a few questions. As I say, thanks very much for listening. I hope you found something of interest. This is my, on the left, my Twitter or X account and email. If you have any questions on it, I'm there.